Hey guys. Well, let's begin. Tonight we wake up in the crumbling belly of ancient Rome, the Subura. It's not a district you brag about. The walls sweat mold, neighbors shout through paper-thin partitions, and someone's always frying something suspicious in olive oil 2 doors down. The air's thick with soot from tanneries, steam from bathhouses, and the buzz of gossip sharper than the fly. You roll over on your straw mattress, if you're lucky enough to have one, brushing lace from your scalp while squinting at the dawn light pushing through your shutter. Your body aches, not from some epic gladiator-style battle, but from sleeping curled on uneven bricks, wrapped in a threadbare blanket that might have doubled as a client's toga last week. You sit up, scratch your leg, and instantly regret that decision. Flea bites everywhere. Someone's already banging pots in the alley. A baker, maybe. You smell burnt bread and ash, which means the day is already underway. To be honest, you probably won't survive this, not long-term anyway. Most girls in your line of work don't. The job wears your body down fast, especially here in the Subura, where your dignity gets trampled quicker than the morning wine delivery. So, before the lights go out, click like and subscribe, but only if you're brave enough to return tomorrow night. And drop your city and local time in the comments. Let's see who else is up at this ungodly hour. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan, because silence makes this story worse. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You get up and stretch. Your back cracks, the ceiling so low you can touch the moldy rafters with your fingertips. You shuffle to the doorway, stepping over a neighbor's drunk uncle, still snoring in last night's vomit. That's Titus. He used to be a legionary. Now he mostly yells at pigeons and forgets to wear pants. Nobody asks why he's there. That's the Subura rule. Don't ask. Outside, the alley teems with life. Kids chase each other with sticks. A pig roots through a pile of cabbage stems. A beggar you vaguely know, Julia, or maybe Junia, whispers your name and asks if you've got any bread. You don't. You barely have a heel of stale spelt from last night. You smile anyway, because in this place, your face is a tool. Keep it sweet. Keep it marketable. Above, on the higher terraces, patrician homes soak in sunlight and peace. Down here, everything leaks. Chamber pots, rumors, blood. The elite pretend they don't know what happens in these alleys, but they do. They just prefer not to see it in daylight. One of your roommates, Rufina, the redhead who claims to have once worked for a senator, is already dabbing goat milk on her cheeks. She says it keeps her skin smooth. You think it smells like regret. Another girl, skinny little Fausta, mutters that she lost her bronze ring again. That's code. She probably pawned it for a cup of posca and doesn't remember. You make a mental note to keep your own stash tucked deeper in the wall crack. You pass the communal fountain where everyone jostles for water. The man's washing his armpits. Someone else is brushing their teeth with a stick. You duck in quick, splash your face, and ignore the guy asking if you're open for business yet. It's not even mid-morning for Jupiter's sake. Back home, or what passes for it, you pull on your work shift. It's threadbare linen, maybe yellow-dyed if you're feeling bold. The color is a dead giveaway. You're not a respectable matron. You're part of the meretrix class, or worse, technically illegal, sometimes tolerated, sometimes used, rarely protected. You might be registered, you might not. That depends on whether the local aedile is feeling bureaucratic this month. Historically, we know that Rome's sex workers came in layers: high-class courtesans, temple girls, tavern girls, streetwalkers. You're likely hovering between the last two. No silk tunics, no villa appointments, just cold steps and sweaty coin. And here's a weird tidbit. Ancient Roman pimps called Lenins sometimes advertised their girls with little signs like menus, name, price, special talents. If you're lucky, you're not on one of those yet. If you're really lucky, you might someday afford your own sign. Dream big. You grab your pouch, 3 bronze asses inside, enough for a crust and maybe a drop of wine later, maybe. You tuck a sprig of rue behind your ear. It's not perfume, it's pest control. And supposedly it wards off evil spirits, too. Worth a shot. As you step out for the day, you pass the graffiti-covered walls. Names scratched by lovers, curses etched in rage, symbols only insiders read fluently. One of them might even be about you. Sulpicia has lips like honey. Charming, until you remember Sol Peach has been dead for 2 weeks. Historians still argue whether brothel life in Rome was mostly indentured, outright enslaved, or surprisingly independent. The truth probably slides between all three. What's certain is this: your time isn't your own. Not really, and neither is your body, except when you fight to reclaim a sliver of it. In private, when no one's watching. You move through the streets now, your sandals flapping against uneven stones, smells swirl up, garum sauce, donkey dung, someone boiling vinegar nearby. You see a patrician's litter float past, silken curtains closed. His guards glare like you've breathed too loud. You smile anyway. That's the game. Someone calls your name, an old regular probably. You ignore it. Not yet. You need to pick your corner, your look, your angle of attack. But that's for the next part of the day. Right now you've survived the waking, the lights rising, the streets alive, and your day is just beginning.
You duck into a shadowed corner near the steps of an old insula and pull out your kit, what passes for your dressing table in this city of marble and lies. A cracked mirror the size of your palm, a jar of soot for eyeliner, a scrap of faded red pigment, maybe imported once upon a time from Spain. Now, who knows, could be brick dust, could be rust. You rub it on your lips anyway. What do Roman prostitutes wear all day? Depends on what they're allowed to wear. Respectable Roman women, matrone, Don Stolus and Pallas, layers of fabric that scream modesty and marital status. You're legally forbidden from wearing a stola. It's like a uniform ban. No toga either, unless you're a satirical poet or dead inside. So you go with the tunica, short, clinging, worn without shame or choice. The kind of outfit that whispers, available before you even open your mouth. Your sandals are worn, the laces tied too many times, one broken. You knot it again with practiced fingers. Jewelry? If you have any, it's probably fake. Painted glass, bronze pretending to be gold. But it's all part of the image. They don't pay for reality. They pay for fantasy. Dirty, desperate fantasy. You wrap a scarf around your hair, dyed red last month. It's faded now, patchy and dry, but it still gets attention. Red was popular with girls in your trade, maybe because it looked bold, maybe because it stained everything, like your reputation. You squint into the mirror, practicing your smile. Not the real one. That one's gone soft with hunger and ache. No, this one is sharper. Teeth just slightly bared, eyes amused, chin tilted in mock indifference. That's the smile that sells. Down the road, another girl struts past wearing citrus peel perfume and a belt of coins that jingle with every sway of her hips. That's Licinia. She's got a steady regular with a merchant who buys her oysters and olive oil in bulk. He's missing 2 fingers but rich as Neptune. She nods your way without stopping. There's no time for small talk. Everyone's chasing the best foot traffic. You look at your options. The alley by the bakery is hot, but the baker's wife is prone to throwing hot ash on girls who linger too long. The site of the taverna is always crowded with drunkards by midday. Not ideal, but sometimes you get lucky. Then there's the arches near the forum. More elite clients, more risk of patrols, and purists yelling about morality. You pick your spot and walk there like you own it. Head high, shoulders back. Confidence is part of the uniform. Here's the kicker. Historians still argue whether Roman prostitutes wore identifiable uniforms, like togas for punishment, or specific colours for class. Some inscriptions suggest distinctions, others don't. It's a mess. Reality was probably less about rules, and more about surviving however you could without getting stabbed or arrested. Along the way, you pass a fountain with a tiny statue of Venus tucked into a niche. You touch your fingers to your lips, then to her feet. Just in case. Venus doesn't play favourites, but she notices effort. At your chosen corner you set up shop, not with a sign or a shout, but with presence. You lean against the wall just enough to look casual. You adjust your tunic for a better view of your chest. You hold your chin so your best angle catches the light. Your shift has officially started. Here's the part they never show in the history scrolls. The boredom. You might wait hours before anyone so much as looks at you. In the meantime, you people watch like a philosopher. You judge sandals, guess relationships, count how many times a senator's son stumbles past with important business. Sometimes you get lucky, if that word even means anything anymore. A travelling Gaul asks for directions and leaves a coin. A freedman from the bakery flirts poorly, but pays well. Once, a widow slipped you a fig and whispered, "Be careful, they took Flavia last week." She didn't say who they were. You already knew. As you stand there, perfecting stillness, a group of young Romans pass by. They laugh too loud. One tosses a coin on the ground and tells you to fetch. You don't move. You keep your spine straight and your gaze blank. He's not worth the effort. Eventually, they slink away, bored with your defiance. But your heart's racing, not from fear, from restraint. You've learned not to react. That's lesson 1 in this job. Suddenly, a young woman across the street lets out a shout. Her client tried to run without paying. She throws a wine jug after him, misses by a mile, and gets a cheer from nearby vendors. The man slinks off, humiliated. She grins at you and shrugs. Just another morning. And here's something weird. Some prostitutes carried little tokens with images of their trade, like a business card, but carved in bronze. One was found with a woman doing acrobatics no spine should manage. Maybe it was real, maybe it was advertising. Either way, it makes you feel better about your own flexibility. As the sun rises higher, you consider redoing your hair. Sweat sticks it to your forehead. You swipe it back with an olive-oiled hand. A stray dog noses your feet. You nudge it away gently. You'll see it again tomorrow. You hear bells in the distance. Temple rites, maybe. Or the bakery's mid-morning batch. Either way, it's a cue. Time to shift positions. The lights moved. The crowds have changed. You're not chained to one wall. You go where the shadows flatter. You cross to the other side of the alley, just as a man rounds the corner, eyeing you openly. He's older, with yellowed teeth and a clean tunic. Merchant class. Good. They pay up front. He stops. "How much?" he asks. You smile the practiced smile. "Depends what you're after." Your voice is even, smooth. Just warm enough to keep him from walking, just cold enough to keep him guessing. You've said those same words 1,000 times. He chuckles. "Clever girl." "No, just surviving." The negotiation begins. But that's for later. Right now, you're here. You're ready, and you're dressed for the only job you didn't choose, but have mastered anyway. The deal's done with a nod and a clink. 1 bronze coin. Not your best rate, but not your worst either. You don't flinch. Never show that face. Instead, you turn toward the job, not with anticipation, not with dread, just with detachment. Now you need a place. You lead him down a narrow alley, where pomegranate peels rot in the sun, and a cat watches from a windowsill like it owns the empire. You pass 3 doorways, all occupied, one by a wine seller swatting flies, another by a woman braiding her daughter's hair, and a third by a boy peeing into a bucket. You nod at the innkeeper on the corner, but he jerks his head no. Full. Again. That's the thing about working in the Subura. You're never the only one hunting for space. Rome doesn't hand out office space for women like you. You have to scrounge, rely on favours, time your arrivals just right. Your eyes land on a half-open door. A taverna you've used before, when the owner's drunk enough to look the other way. Inside, it smells like vinegar, stale wine, and something burned. The back room is dim, just a curtain between you and the amphora stacked like forgotten wishes. Your client hesitates. He wanted a room with a view, not one with a rat in the corner. You raise your eyebrows. This or the street? He chooses the curtain. They always do. Inside, the act is quick, forgettable, transactional. You keep your mind blank. You count amphorae. You notice someone scratched Marcio loves Tertius on the wall. Someone else crossed it out and wrote, "No sheet offer." You wonder if Marcio is still around. If she's working a better tavern now. Outside, someone laughs too loud. A stool falls over. A flute player hits the wrong note. And just like that, it's over. You adjust your tunic, collect your coin, and step back into the sun. Here's a quirky bit of Roman trivia. Certain brothels, especially in places like Pompeii, were built with masonry beds, stone slabs with thin straw mats. Efficient, indestructible, absolutely spine-shattering. You think about those girls and wonder which is worse, stone or this reeking curtain. You need a better spot. So you walk. Around the corner is a building with a telltale sign, a carved phallus pointing inward. That's the Lupercell, named for the old Roman slang for prostitutes, lupi, or she-wolves. Why wolves? No one's sure. Maybe because you're always hungry. Maybe because you're always hunted. You've used this place before. It's run by a woman named Attica, a former worker turned landlord, who now charges by the half hour. She sits outside fanning herself with a fig leaf and glaring like she's 5 minutes from hexing someone. Full? She grunts before you ask. I only need 10 minutes. Then find 10 stones to lie on. You consider bribing her, but you can't spare the coin. Not today. This is how your day goes, constantly negotiating space. Not just physical space, but breathing room, dignity, time. You're like a gladiator without the armor, fighting for corners, for privacy, for protection. You swing by another spot you know, a crumbling staircase behind a baker's shop. He lets girls use it between deliveries. But today, it's occupied by a tall Syrian with cheekbones like a sculpture and a voice like honey dipped in wine. She's humming softly. Her client grunts along. You back away silently. Let her have it. She helped you once during a rainstorm when your sandal broke and your foot bled onto the cobbles. That's the unspoken rule. Help when you can. Karma circulates in the Subura like shared wine cups. Eventually you end up behind the bathhouse, a last resort. It's loud, it stinks, and the steam leaks out of the walls like sweat from a dying man. But it's a corner, a usable one. You wait. Another client comes, a trader with garlic breath and a suspicious rash. You quote your price. He grumbles, pays, and follows. Afterward, you rinse your hands in the nearest fountain. The water's cold, clear, and vaguely smells of fish. You look at your reflection, eyes dull, lips chapped, tunic askew. You fix it all in 30 seconds and move on. There's no time to wallow. And here's the kicker. Historians still argue whether all brothels were state-licensed, taxed, or just tolerated. Some records suggest official registrations. Others hint at bribes under the table, local leniency, or straight-up looking the other way. Your experience depends on the street, depends on the mood. By midday, you've cycled through 3 spots. Your legs ache, your back's stiff, you still haven't eaten. You find a small shadowed nook between 2 stools and sit. Vendors shout around you dates, olives, smoked eels. You nibble a crust of bread you pocketed earlier. It's dry, hard enough to chip a tooth. You chew anyway. Hunger doesn't care about texture. A shadow looms. You tense, until you see it's just Lolia, another worker from 3 blocks over. She flops down beside you, groaning like a broken wagon. Any luck today? She asks. You shake your head. You. Lost one to Lycinia. Again. You both sigh. She passes you a fig. You give her half of your crust. It's not charity. It's survival. And then, a moment of stillness. Pigeons flutter above. A stray flute melody snakes through the air. Somewhere, someone drops a cup, and the pottery shatters like thunder. But for you and Lolia, tucked into a slice of shade, the world holds its breath. Just for a second. Then the bells ring from the temple of Castor and Pollux, signalling the afternoon. Time to move again. Your best spot will be open soon, after the butcher closes and the foot traffic shifts. You know the rhythm of this district like a heartbeat. You stand, stretch, brush crumbs from your knees, and nod to Lolia. Another round begins. Another chase for space. Because in Rome, the job isn't just what you do, it's where you can do it, without being pushed out, locked out, or thrown out. You head toward the butcher's corner, 3 steps ahead of the next girl. By the time you get to the butcher's corner, someone's already there. Of course they are. You recognize her too. Claudia. She's tall, lean, with dark eyes and the kind of smile that makes married men forget they're married. She doesn't even glance your way, just adjusts her neckline and stakes her claim. You could challenge her, start a scene, but it's not worth it. Not today. Instead, you drift back down the alley and rejoin the flow of Rome's undercurrent. Competition is everywhere, not just in the number of girls, but in the performance. Hair curled just so, tunic cinched just right, voices lifted like honey, not vinegar. There's an art to catching a man's gaze for just long enough to say, "I'm available," but not so long it screams desperation. Some girls dye their hair with saffron, or bleach it with goat fat and ashes to look more exotic. A few even wear wigs, imports from Germania or Egypt, depending on what the client base is craving that season. One girl you know, Sabina, keeps a peacock feather tucked behind her ear like some kind of charm. She swears it draws wealth. You think it mostly draws lice. There's no sisterhood here, not really. You might share bread, you might lend a scarf, but ultimately each one of you is trying to eat, trying to outlast. And that means clawing for the same coin. Still, there's a strange sort of community, a grim camaraderie. You all know the game. You all play the same parts. There's Licinia again, her curls oiled to perfection, laughing too loud as a Praetorian swagger passes. He stops, smiles, says something crude. She tosses her hair, pretends to care. She's good. Better than you, maybe. Depends on the day. You remember when she showed up, new to the street. Too quiet, too hopeful. That didn't last. Now she knows how to move, how to stand, how to lure. She even has a nickname now, Fortunata. Lucky. It started as a joke, now it's just what people call her. Nicknames are part of the scene. Most of the girls use them. Real names are too fragile, too easy to break. You've gone by several: Minerva, Daphne, Lupa. Today you're calling yourself Flora. Tomorrow maybe something else. One girl, Domitilla, goes by Vespera, even though she only works during daylight. She says it makes her sound more mysterious. Another girl uses Aurora, even though her face is more battle-worn than morning light. But it sells. Everything sells if you say it with enough charm. You hear shouting down the street. 2 girls fighting over a regular, again. One accuses the other of stealing her man. He's standing nearby, watching like it's a pantomime. You know him, Gaius, fickle, tips well if you flatter him, complains if you don't. You stay out of it. No point in joining a duel when the prize is mediocrity. And then there's the bruises. You see them more than you want to. On arms, on ribs, hidden under necklines. Some come from clients, others from pimps. A few girls, freelance, but most have some kind of handler, called linones. Some linones are strategic, offering protection and coin-splitting deals. Others are pure poison, demanding money and obedience in exchange for beatings and dirty bread. You've avoided one so far, mostly by luck, partly by learning fast, but you know girls who didn't, ones who vanished, or came back different. There's Calvia. She used to laugh loud enough to rattle shutters. Now she barely speaks above a whisper. She walks with a limp she didn't have 3 months ago. Nobody asks what happened. You all already know. Historians still argue whether the average Roman sex worker had true autonomy, or if the system was too weighted, too brutal. Some ancient sources describe women in the trade buying their freedom, saving up, even retiring. Others paint a picture of endless chains. The truth, you've learned, changes based on who's watching. But you do what you can. You scout another corner, trying not to look desperate. You end up near a bathhouse entrance, prime real estate during afternoon hours. The steam wafts out, and with it, upper-class men with damp hair, loose wallets, and soft egos. A good time to be seen. You adjust your stance, tighten your belt, and smile at the passing crowd. You catch one glance, then another. You might even get a bite. Nearby, Flavia rolls her eyes. She's been working this spot longer than you. She mutters something under her breath, probably about territory. You ignore it. She'll get over it, or she won't. Doesn't matter. Then a surprise. A face you know. Tertius. Soldier. Regular. Likes your hair. Pays in coin, not promises. He grins when he sees you, and your smile this time isn't entirely fake. He's not sweet, but he's not cruel either. You've known worse. You wave him over. While he talks, usual pleasantries, usual price negotiations. You hear Forster laughing behind you. She's talking to a merchant, touching his elbow, complimenting his sandals. She's good at that, finding something flattering to say about even the ugliest men. She once told a balding scribe that his scalp reminded her of a moonlit marble. It worked. Competition never sleeps here. Everyone's hustling. Everyone's performing. Everyone's fighting to be chosen, even if the prize is just 5 bronze coins and a stomach that won't growl tonight. As Tertius pulls you into the shadow of the bathhouse wall, you see Claudia again, still on her spot, still holding that corner like a throne. Her eyes flick to yours, assessing, calculating. Then she smiles. Thin, cold, triumphant. You smile back, but you're already thinking 2 moves ahead. The wall is cool against your back as Tertius leans in, murmuring something about how he's missed you. You know he's lying. Maybe not completely. Maybe he has thought about your eyes or the way you laugh when you're tired. But mostly he's here for routine. For release. For the moment when the world goes quiet for 10 minutes and he gets to forget he's not special. You give him what he wants, but only enough to keep him paying. You're careful. You laugh at the right beat, sigh in the right place, press just close enough to stir his ego. He leaves satisfied, slightly smug, and 2 coins lighter. You slide the money into your sash like it's just another muscle memory. Then you exhale. One more done. 1 step closer to a dinner that isn't stale barley. As the crowd swells in the streets, you watch the flow of people. Senators' sons with flushed cheeks and wine-stained tunics, merchants with leather satchels full of scrolls and secrets, legionaries swaggering with the boredom of peacetime. You know most of them by sight, some by name, a few by smell. Some are regulars, men who return again and again, not out of love, but habit. Like Lucius, the baker's cousin, who asks you to talk about philosophy while he pretends to listen. Or Spurius, who only wants to be insulted in Greek. You don't know why, you just oblige. And then there are the one-offs, the wanderers, travellers from Gaul or Hispania, who walk into Rome like it's a goddess they want to seduce. They pay well, but they're exhausting. They ask too many questions. They look at you like you're part of the architecture. But the strangest ones? The talkers. You've had clients cry during the act, whisper secrets into your neck, confess betrayals, thefts, ambitions. One man told you he poisoned his brother. Another admitted he hated his wife but loved her dog. You just nodded. What else can you do? You're not a priest. You're not even a person to them, really. You're a wall they throw their shadows against. And yet, those moments feel weirdly intimate, more so than the act itself. You become a confessor without the collar, a therapist without the scroll. Your body might be the product, but your ears, that's the real service sometimes. There's this one client, an older man, cloth merchant, hands always ink-stained, who doesn't even touch you, just pays to talk. He tells you about his dead wife, his lonely dinners, how his daughter married someone cruel. You sit beside him, nod, hum when the silence stretches. He always leaves you a fig and a silver coin. You've learnt to spot the lonely ones. They walk slower, their eyes drift. They ask your name and almost mean it. You tell them whatever name you're using that day. It doesn't matter. They'll believe it. They want to believe it. Quirky fact. In ancient Rome, some prostitutes became minor celebrities. Graffiti in Pompeii praises girls like Eutychus and Maritima for their beauty, their skills, or even their singing voices. You wonder if anyone's ever scratched your name into a wall with a heart beside it. Probably not, but maybe. Once, a drunk poet told you he was going to write a scroll about you, said your eyes reminded him of the Tiber at night, murky, dangerous, unforgettable. You laughed until you cried. He passed out before he could finish the metaphor, probably for the best. And here's something the scholars still debate. Were clients mostly cruel or just indifferent? Ancient texts go both ways. Some paint Roman men as brutes using girls and leaving bruises. Others suggest some clients formed odd attachments, even protected the women they frequented. You've seen both. You've been hit. You've been hugged. Once a man offered to marry you after 2 sessions. He was already married. You said no. You're not that desperate. Not yet. The sun climbs higher. The streets heat up. Smells intensify. Bodies, dung, grilled fish, garum bubbling in some unlucky tavern. You feel the sweat slide down your spine. Your feet ache from the rough cobbles. You think about sitting, but the spot you usually use is taken by a boy selling dried figs. So you walk. Slowly, casually. You drift past another worker Petronia. Young, wide-eyed, still believes she's going to save up and open a shop. She tells everyone she's just doing this for a few months. You don't say anything. Just smile and nod. Petronia's regular is a man named Varro, who smells like new parchment and wears too much oil in his hair. He's talking to her now, waving his arms, trying to impress her with stories about gladiators. She laughs. You know that laugh. You've used it. It says, "You're boring, but I'm broke." You slip past them and head toward your lunch spot, if you can call it that. It's a shaded nook behind the old latrina, near a collapsed wall that smells only faintly of disaster today. You sit. Exhale. Let the ache settle. You unwrap your crust. You nibble. You breathe. You watch. There's movement at the end of the alley. A man pacing. A girl leaning against a crate. A couple of boys pretending not to stare. You lean back, shield your eyes, and let the afternoon settle like dust on your skin. Somewhere, a flute plays a soft, off-key tune. You're not happy, but you're not broken. Not yet. And you're not alone. You break your bread with your teeth, not your hands. It's that stale. It's the kind of crust that could crack a molar, but you chew anyway. Sitting behind the latrina isn't exactly scenic, but it's shaded, and shade is a luxury in this city of fire and marble. Flavia joins you without asking. She plops down beside you like she owns the spot, sighs heavily, and offers half a bruised fig. You trade her the second half of your crust. It's not generosity, it's habit. A barter system that doesn't need words. Around the corner, the public latrine gurgles and splashes, a steady hum of waste flowing beneath the city. Inside, rich men relieve themselves on smooth stone benches while discussing politics or philosophy. You've heard them, grumbling about taxes while wiping with sponges on sticks. Sometimes you listen in. Information can be more valuable than coin. Today, you catch snatches of a conversation about a senator being blackmailed, something else about grain shortages. Not that it changes your day, but knowing things gives you power. If you ever need leverage, you'll know who's scared of what. There's a little graffiti scratched on the outer wall of the latrina. You stare at it as you eat. A crude drawing of a man with a donkey's head and a woman holding a whip. Someone scratched the word Julia underneath. You smirk. Julia's long gone, but she left a legacy. Beside you, Flavia picks at her sandal strap. You hear about Terentia? You shake your head. Gone, she mutters. Vanished. Some say she ran off with a soldier. Others say she got picked up by that slaver who works the docks. You stare at the cobbles. You like Terentia. She always smelled like cinnamon bark and had a weird obsession with counting pigeons. You hoped she'd make it. But this job doesn't hand out clean exits. Another girl passes by, Caliho, who used to work temple steps, but got chased off after a priest caught her competing with the divine. She snorts when she sees you two on the ground. You look like stray dogs. Better than a temple statue, Flavia shoots back. Calliope flips her braid and disappears into the crowd. Flavia leans back, eyes closed. I swear, some days I'd rather clean out the latrina than go back to that alley. Same smell, you mutter. She laughs, just once, just enough. Let's be clear, breaks like this don't last long. You have maybe 10-15 minutes before the next wave of men hit the street, post-bathhouse, post-lunch, wine-buzzed and looking for distraction. So you savour what you can. You adjust your tunic, tilt your head to the sky. The sun is relentless, bouncing off the whitewashed walls and burning your scalp. You wipe sweat from your upper lip. Your armpits are soaked. You gave up on elegance hours ago. And here's the thing. This little lunch break, it might be the safest part of your day. No groping hands, no leering faces, no haggling. Just you, a crust, and maybe a quiet moment of nothing. It's as close to peace as the Subura allows. Weird historical note. Some prostitutes in Rome had access to their own kitchens or little rooms near the brothels where they cooked their own meals. Others shared cooking fires, but a lot just scavenged vindil. Leftovers from taverns, scraps from street vendors, a handful of olives if they were lucky. And you've done all three. Today, you chew slowly, pretending it's fine cuisine. The fig's sweet, at least, half-rotted, but sweet. Flavia gets up first. Back to it, she grumbles, dusting off her butt. You follow a few minutes later, circling around the latrina one more time. You glance in, not because you need to go, but because you're half hoping to overhear something else. Two old men are grumbling about the circus games being postponed. One mutters that he lost a bet. The other whispers that the emperor might be sick. If that's true, things might get tight. Fear makes people greedy. Greed makes them cruel. File it away. The alley smells worse now. The heat's dragged up every buried stench. Urine, sweat, cheap perfume, blood. You walk through it like a ghost, eyes scanning for an opening, a face, a hint of interest. You move past a vendor roasting chickpeas. Your stomach growls again. You ignore it. You pass the alley where Terenci used to work. It's empty now. Her name's still scratched into the wall in tiny letters. Terrent Hearts Lucius. You never knew who Lucius was. Probably didn't matter. Names fade. You settle near a wine shop. It's a risk. Drunks tend to grab without paying, but the scent draws men in. The wine flows, and with it loose talk and looser hands. You lean against the wall and let yourself fade into the background. Just another girl in a city of 1,000 girls. That's when a familiar figure stumbles toward you. You brace. It's Gellius. Not your favourite. Never your worst. He's a cook in some senator's house. Swears he once made porridge for a Vestal virgin. He probably didn't. He never stops talking, and he smells like onions. Flora, my lovely, he slurs. I dreamed of you. Did I kill you in it? You reply. He laughs too loud. A passing vendor glances over. You smile faintly, lock eyes with Gellius, and wait for the negotiation. He's predictable. He haggles. You resist. He caves, and then he tips more than he said he would. Just before he speaks, someone else calls your name. You turn. A new client. One you don't recognize. Clean tunic, soft sandals, hands without calluses. A man of status, maybe. You pivot. I saw you last week, he says. By the fountain. You nod. Smile. Play it cool. Gellius scowls and walks away. You don't care. New blood, new money. The man steps closer. His breath smells like mint and wine. He speaks low, asks about privacy. You know a spot, tucked behind a shuttered bakery, clean enough, safe enough. You nod. He takes your hand. You let him. As you walk, you glance back once. The street is alive again. Girls resetting their hair. Coins clinking. Men laughing. A city forever hungry. Forever circling. And you? And you're back on shift. The spot behind the shuttered bakery is narrow, shaded, and miracle of miracles, empty. You guide him there without looking over your shoulder. He follows willingly, like they always do, as if you've bewitched him. You haven't. You're just the only one who smiled without flinching. He asks your name. You lie. Something elegant this time. Livia. Sounds expensive. He nods approvingly. He wants the illusion. Let him pay for it. After, you dust your knees, straighten your tunic, and tuck the coin he gives you into your belt. A silver denarius. More than fair. You say nothing. Gratitude's not part of the sale. He lingers, like he wants to talk. You pull a loose thread from your sleeve and yawn pointedly. He takes the hint. When he's gone, you sag against the brick wall and let yourself breathe. 10 seconds of stillness. That's all you can afford. Because your back aches, your thighs are sore, and you've started to feel the dull sting in your lower abdomen again. That same ache that comes and goes. You're not sure if it's something serious or just part of the grind. You tell yourself it'll pass. It always does. Until it doesn't. Truth is, this job wears your body down in ways no one wants to admit. You walk to the nearest fountain and splash water on your face. It's lukewarm, but it helps. You rinse your mouth. Then you dig in your pouch and pull out the dried herb bundle Rufina gave you. Wormwood, mint, and pennyroyal. You chew it slowly, hoping the bitterness dulls the cramping. Fringe fact, pennyroyal was a go-to for women like you in ancient Rome. Supposed to help with menstrual pain, also rumoured to bring on the flow, if you're late. Problem is, the dose that helps is pretty close to the dose that kills. But hey, options were limited. Fausta once brewed it too strong and passed out in the taverna mid-shift. Took her 2 days to walk straight again. You only sip now. You've learned. You check yourself. Lips dry, breath tolerable, tunic decent, and head back out. Still more hours to go. Still more bodies to meet. Here's the part no one likes to talk about. The health hazards. The slow bleed of vitality from the inside out. The bruises that don't fade. Some days it's rashes, others it's coughs. You've seen girls spit blood and swear it's nothing. They never make it to 30. Your own body tells you stories. The scar on your hip from a fall. The slight limp on rainy days. The way you flinch if someone grabs your wrist too fast. And then there are the private things. The strange smells. The fevers. The mornings you wake up dizzy and sweating and pray it's just bad wine, not something worse. You remember Martia? Beautiful. Smart. Had a way of turning men into fools with just one sentence. She started limping. Then coughing. Then bleeding. No one helped. They said she was cursed. They buried her in a ditch behind the tannery. You lit a candle for her at the temple of Juno. It smoked and went out in seconds. You didn't light another. It's not all doom, though. Some girls find tricks, remedies passed down, whispered like prayers. Rue to keep away spirits, myrrh to cleanse, sulphur soap if you can afford it, vinegar rinse if you can't. One girl, Agrippina, swears by a paste of crushed garlic and honey, rubs it everywhere before work, says it's protection. Smells like a salad, but maybe she's right. She hasn't been sick in months. Still, you know the truth. There's no shield here. No clean sheets. No safe days. Every shift is a gamble. Every man a question, will he pay? Will he hit? Will he bring something home that rots you from the inside? Historians still argue how much medical knowledge women in your position actually had. Some say you were educated in the basics, herbs, birth control, even primitive surgery. Others think you relied mostly on trial and error, hand-me-down cures and superstition. You'd say it's both. You've learned the signs of infection. You know which herbs ease the cramping, which powders stop the itching, which ones don't work at all. You've learned to hide symptoms too. Men don't like reminders that you're a real person with a real body. They want softness, not sores. And pregnancy? You've had scares. Every girl has. There's no clean solution, just risky herbs, frantic prayers, and, if all else fails, a woman named Livia down near the cattle market. She helps, for a fee, with a sharp stick and a terrifying calm. Some don't come back from her place. Some do, but never walk the same again. You pass by a cart selling clay figurines. One catches your eye, a woman holding a baby carved with care. You pause, just a second, then move on. That kind of dream isn't free, and in your world dreams cost more than they're worth. You head toward the corner near the olive vendor. Good foot traffic. Enough breeze to keep the smell of fish at bay. You adjust your belt, plaster on a new smile, and wait. A young man walks by. Doesn't look twice. Too clean, too nervous. Then an older man. Slower, eyes like a hawk. You recognize him. A lawyer, maybe, or a clerk. The type who likes control. You stand a little straighter. He stops. How much? You tell him. He considers. Nods. This time, you use the alley behind the perfumer's stall. It smells like crushed rose petals in desperation. You brace yourself, because the truth is, no amount of pennyroyal garlic or wine will save you from the wear, the minute-by-minute erosion. But for now, your hands are steady, your breath is calm, and your body, battered, aching, still yours, is doing what it must. You're rinsing your hands at a fountain again, this time one clogged with olive pits and something that looks suspiciously like a fish spine. Doesn't matter. You scrub the grime from your palms and try not to think about the smell rising off your skin. The man was rough, not violent, just impatient, careless. He treated you like furniture. You're used to it. Doesn't make it easier. You sit down on a cracked step near the fountain, pretending to rest your legs. Really, you're watching for patrols. The aediles, the city magistrates, don't always enforce the rules, but when they do, they like to make an example. Technically, you're supposed to be registered. If you're not, you're unlicensed, which makes you a criminal. If you are, you're public property, legal to use, but not to respect. Either way, you lose. Rom's laws don't protect you, they continue. You exist in a grey zone, permitted, taxed, regulated, but never truly safe. You've heard the terms meretrix, lupa, prostibula. The names change, the status doesn't. A few of the girls keep forged registration tokens, little bits of lead or bronze stamped with a fake name, a license mark, sometimes a made-up brothel address. Yours is real. Bought it when you had a good month last Saturnalia. Still smells like blood and sweat. Funny historical fact. Brothel workers in Rome sometimes had to pay taxes just to operate. A pleasure tax, they called it. Imagine that. Rome, the empire of roads and gods and armies, making you pay for the privilege of being degraded. You spot a patrol coming. 2 men in uniform, short swords at their hips. The smugness of unchecked power in their eyes. You stand. Smooth your tunic. Make yourself small and invisible. One of them eyes you. The other nudges his shoulder, whispers something. They keep walking. You exhale. You've had worse run-ins. A year ago they caught Junior behind the baths, accused her of working without a license. She had one. They didn't care. Beat her bloody anyway. Left her with a split lip and 2 broken ribs. Said she resisted. She didn't. She cried. That was her crime. Sometimes they demand coin. Sometimes they want more. You've learned to vanish when you see them. Fade into doorways. Pretend to pray. Lift a basket and act like you're delivering something. It doesn't always work, but it helps. You head toward the meat market. It's loud, it's messy, and no patrol wants to wade through blood and entrails unless they have to. It's also where the butcher's boys like to spend their lunch coins. You plant yourself near a stool with hanging sausages and try not to think too hard about the smell. Here comes one now, a wiry kid with a laugh too big for his body and grease on his chin. He's bought you before, paid extra for you to pretend to like his jokes. You're good at that. He grins. You busy? Not yet, you reply. Wanna be? You shrug like it's a coin toss. He pulls you toward a shuttered alley behind the market, one hand in his tunic, already eager. He's quick, forgettable, harmless. Afterward he tosses you 2 coppers and says, "Don't tell my brother." You don't even know his brother. You walk back to the main road, body loose, eyes sharp. You pass a temple, small, dedicated to Fortuna Virilis. You don't go in, you just touch the wall and murmur a name. Your own. Not the one you're using today, the real one. The one you haven't said out loud in months. Because the law doesn't know you, not really. The law knows the woman in the tunic with the license token and the fake smile. It knows what you do, not who you are. You remember a time, brief, blurry, when you had other dreams. Maybe it was a boy, maybe it was a farm, maybe it was just a quieter life. But then your father died, or was sold, or vanished, and your mother couldn't feed everyone, so you got passed along like a jug of wine that no one wants to drink but no one will throw away. And now you're here, on this street, in this city, wearing a tunic that says, "Don't ask questions, just pay." You pass a column covered in posted edicts. One declares a new grain law, something about rations being cut for non-citizens. Another warns against loitering near temples. You tear it down just enough to see the older notice underneath. A list of stolen property, including a silver comb, a wool cloak, and her name scribbled out. Historians still argue whether women like you were mostly free, mostly enslaved, or somewhere between. Contracts existed. Girls rented out by brothel owners, bound by time or debt. Others were born into this, marked from childhood. A few even chose it, believe it or not. Chose this over starvation, over begging, over marrying some old drunk with 1 eye and 9 kids. Choice is a relative thing. You sit near a bakery wall and rub your feet. One sandal's strap is fraying. You'll need to fix it before sundown. A passing woman glances at you, well-dressed, pearls at her throat. She sneers. You catch her eye and smile. Her husband's a regular. Probably hers, probably not. You rest for a few minutes, letting the sweat dry on your skin. You sip water from a cracked cup. You breathe in slow and steady, even though the air smells like meat and ash. You're still here, still on your feet, still working. The law may not protect you, but neither does it stop you. And for now, that's enough. The sun is low now, hanging heavy like a dropped coin on the lip of the city's rooftops. Rome's stone walls glow orange, shadows stretch, and the air softens, not cooler, just lazier. You slow your pace, adjust your tunic again, and wipe the back of your neck with the edge of your sleeve. This is the hour when things shift. The streets lose their daytime frenzy and settle into something more uncertain. Men drink slower, talk quieter. The smell of roasting garlic and fish fills the alleys. You can hear the clatter of dice in the tavern and the soft notes of a lyre drifting from a wealthy home you'll never step inside. You pause at the corner of an old fountain, the same one you always circle back to, and there he is. Marcus. You recognize his stride before you even see his face. Broad shoulders, pale tunic with a wine stain over the hip. He always pretends not to see you until you speak first. You don't. He stops, turns, smiles. You look tired, he says. You shrug. Long day. He grins like he owns the word charming. Come, I brought something. You follow him through the alley toward the Lupinar, the low-end brothel near the old tanner's yard. It's not glamorous, but it has a door that closes and a cot that doesn't smell like urine. You've been here with him before. You know his rhythm, his laugh, his tells. This time, though, he reaches into his pouch and pulls out a fig wrapped in cloth. It's soft, warm. You blink. For you. You take it slowly. What's the occasion? He shrugs. Didn't want to eat alone. You eat in silence. Him leaning against the door frame, you on the edge of the cot. It's not romantic, but it's something. You've been seeing Marcus on and off for months. He always pays. He always stays longer than he needs to. Sometimes he talks about his job, delivering olive oil for a merchant down by the Tiber. Sometimes he talks about his mother, who wants him to marry a widow with property. She's nice, he said once. Quiet. Smiles like she's been waiting to die. You didn't answer. Tonight, he's quiet. He watches you. You watch the floor. Then, soft. You ever think of leaving? You snort. And do what? I don't know. Go south. My cousin runs a mill in Ostia. He needs workers. You study him. He's serious. He always gets this way when the sun dips. You offering to take me with you? He hesitates. Maybe. You shake your head. You don't know what you're asking. I know you're not like the others. You stand too fast. Your heart pounds. Don't say that. He flinches. I just meant. I know what you meant. You're already adjusting your belt. I'm not your secret salvation story, Marcus. You don't get to feel good about loving a whore. Silence. Then he stands, drops 2 coins on the table. Keep the fig, he says, and leaves. You sit back down. Not because you're heartbroken. You're not. But because you almost wanted to believe him. And that's dangerous. Historians still argue whether relationships between prostitutes and clients were ever genuine. Ancient love poems talk about affairs with courtesans, flings that turned serious. But was it love, or just the illusion of it? You've seen it. Girls falling for regulars, thinking, this one's different, thinking, he sees me. You remember Tulia, kept meeting that Greek merchant, the one who read her bits of Homer like she was worth a line of verse? She thought he'd buy her out, take her to Corinth. He left without a goodbye. She didn't work for a week after that, couldn't look anyone in the eye. You promised yourself you wouldn't be like her. And yet, Marcus brought you a fig. You crush it under your heel. Back outside, the lights dimmer. The city's breath slows. Voices lower. Clients shift from brisk and demanding to sluggish and sentimental. This is when things get tricky. Because this is when some of them start to talk. You walk past the taverna and hear a man sobbing into his cup. He's slurring something about his dead brother. No one comforts him. Rome isn't soft. Rome watches and waits. You turn onto a quieter road, looking for work. But your head's buzzing, not from wine, from him, from Marcus and his cursed fig and that question, you ever think of leaving? You think about it now. You imagine a life somewhere else, a tavern of your own, a back room with clean sheets, no corner to compete for, no tunic that tells the world you're available, just quiet. But even in the fantasy it feels fragile, like wet clay. And what would you be without this? Without the glances and the bargains and the bruises? Who would even hire you? You laugh once, low. Then you square your shoulders. Night's coming, and with it the real danger, but also the real money. You pass the bathhouse again. Steam leaks from under the doors like ghost breath. Men in half-fastened tunics step into the street, blinking in the fading light. One sees you, smiles. And just like that, You're back in character. Looking for company? You ask. His hand goes to his purse. You don't think about Marcus again. Not tonight. You've slipped through the torchlit crowd like a ghost with calloused feet. It's early night now, and the heat of the day still hangs in the stones. You feel it rising from the street like a warning. The kind of heat that doesn't let you forget where you are, or who you are. The alley you move into is quieter, lined with broken statues and the stench of wine barrels gone sour. Here, beneath a crumbling arch, someone has set up a makeshift shrine. Not to a senator, not to a hero, but to Venus Erycina. You've been here before. Candles, half burnt and tilting. Faded flowers, bits of ribbon tied to iron nails. Someone's left a comb. Another girl's left a single copper coin, flattened thin from worry and maybe tears. You kneel, not to pray, just to breathe. But your fingers reach out anyway. You whisper, softly, because who knows, maybe she listens. Venus, patron of love, patron of lust. Sometimes called upon by wives, other times by girls like you. You ask her nothing grand, not salvation, not escape, just a safer night, a generous client, one that doesn't bite or cry or ask you to pretend too hard. You leave behind your own offering, a single sprig of rosemary, stolen from a cook shop earlier that day. You tuck it under the comb, like a secret handshake between girls who have never met but already know each other. Then you rise, dust your knees, and keep walking. As you pass into the next street, a half-drunk soldier whistles. You ignore him. Another man, older, murmurs something about your hips. You flash him the briefest smile, calculated, cool, and move on. He doesn't follow. Good. Religion for you is less about faith, more about insurance. You light candles not for comfort, but in case one of the gods is petty enough to help you just to prove they exist. You've tried them all, honestly. Minerva, for strength. Juno, out of habit. Priapus. Well, someone scribbled a prayer to him on the latrine wall, so you figured it couldn't hurt. The one about warding off soft clients and sharp infections. Crude, but practical. And sometimes, when you're desperate, you whisper to Manes, the spirits of the dead, just in case one of them still remembers what it felt like to want out. You're not alone in this. Every girl has her own ritual. Petronia ties a red thread around her ankle before every shift. Fausta spits 3 times into her palm. Claudia mutters a prayer in Greek that no one understands, but everyone copies. And Agrippina, she talks to a little wooden doll she keeps in her sash. Says it's her twin sister, who died in infancy. Swears the doll warns her which men to avoid. You don't ask questions. She's lasted longer than most. Historians still debate how much of Roman religious life was public versus personal. Statues and sacrifices, sure. But what about these quiet offerings? The hidden gestures behind bathhouses and in brothel corners. The things whispered when no priest is listening. No one writes that down, but you live it every day. You stop at a tavern to drink from the public jug. It's watered wine, barely more than grape skin and regret, but it takes the edge off. You wipe your mouth and notice another figure standing across the street. She's young, maybe 14, holding a candle, eyes closed. You recognize that posture. First-timer, maybe sold into this, maybe told she'd be working as a maid. You've seen the look before. That taut, almost hopeful confusion. She's praying. You wonder to who. Then you stop wondering, because it doesn't matter. You want to tell her to run, to disappear, to find a temple and fake piety, to say she has a vow of chastity and hope someone buys it. But you don't say anything. She won't listen. No one ever does the first night. You turn the corner and nearly collide with a man carrying a chicken in a basket. He blinks, nods, and keeps going. Somewhere nearby, someone plays a flute badly. You almost laugh. Then you see it, chalk writing on the wall, barely lit by torchlight. Lupa flora, best in the subura. You stop. You didn't write it, but someone did. The nickname stings a little. You've never liked Lupa, but you can't deny the flicker of pride or fear. You're being noticed. And in your trade, that's both good and fatal. Reputation is everything. It gets you clients, it gets you protection, but it also gets you jealous enemies, girls who'll slash your tunic or spread rumours, men who'll assume you're up for anything just because your name's in chalk. You scrape part of it off with your thumb, smudging the letters until they're just shadow. Not because you're ashamed, because you're careful. You step into the side alley near the fuller's shop, where a few others are already working. The air smells like urine and chemicals from all the fabric washing, but it's quiet. You take your spot. A man approaches. He's not new, he's not kind, but he pays well, and he's fast. He asks nothing about gods. And you offer no prayers. Not this time. You knew the risks would rise with the moon. They always do. The Subura at night is not the Subura by day. It mutates. The streets don't empty. They thicken, with shadows, with smoke, with men who talk low and women who walk faster. The lamplight flickers like it's nervous. And you? You don't relax. You just switch strategies. You pull your tunic tighter, not for modesty. There's no such thing in your work, but to make sure your coin pouch doesn't flash. That would be asking for it. You keep your back near walls now. Corners are safer than open streets. You watch every set of footsteps, every echo. The man from the fuller's alley had hands like bricks. You feel them still on your ribs. But he paid, didn't complain, didn't bleed. That's enough. You step out into the main drag, and here comes the night market. Torches lit, vendors yelling, beggars weaving through wine-drunk soldiers. Smells hit you in waves. Spiced sausages, human sweat, oil lamps, stale fish. A whiff of burning rosemary from a fortune-teller's cart makes your eyes sting. A fight breaks out just ahead. Two men, both tunics stained with wine, arguing over a gambling debt. One shoves the other into a stool of pottery. Clay smashes. A third man laughs. The vendor doesn't. You slip past it all like fog, unnoticed, unbothered. Then you hear it. A scream. Short, sharp, cut off. Down the next alley, you freeze. Two girls nearby hear it too. One moves faster, the other doesn't move at all. You don't look. You don't run. You walk. Because here's a hard truth you've learned. You can't help unless you have coin, power, or a man with a sword. You have none of those, so you keep moving. This is the danger zone now. After dark, the city's drunkest and darkest come out to play. They've spent the day sweating under tunics, following rules, pretending to be civil. Night gives them permission to become something else. And that means for you, more coins, but more risk. You know the hot spots. The rear corner of the taverna near the Temple of Saturn, where dice rollers gather. The crumbling colonnade by the old grain market. And worst of all, the necropolis wall. That's where the ones go who want to scare you, who think a backdrop of tombs makes things more exciting. You've only gone there once, never again. Tonight, you pick the grain market. Enough light to see, enough people to yell, enough soldiers to maybe step in if they're sober enough to care. You find a stone ledge to lean against, body position just right, not inviting, not cold, just available. Soon a man stumbles up, young, soft-voiced, mouth full of apologies. Claims he's never done this before, probably a lie. You agree to a price, lead him to a nearby doorway, half-sheltered, behind a cracked column. He's gentle, but nervous, hands shaking. Keeps saying your name, whichever one you gave him tonight, like it's a prayer. You tell him to close his eyes. It helps. When he's done, he thanks you. Actually says, thank you. You say nothing. He walks away like he's ashamed. You don't watch him go, you watch the shadows. Behind you, someone laughs. 2 men and a girl. She's louder than she should be. She's drunk, or pretending. You hear her call one of them, Master, then giggle. The giggle's fake. The fear underneath it isn't. Not your business. Not tonight. You return to the edge of the torchlight. A client from earlier spots you again. Gellius. Onion breath. This time, he's more wine than man. You wave him off. He slurs something, stumbles toward another girl. She winces, but takes his hand. You envy her less than usual. And here's a weird historical footnote. Rome had laws that theoretically protected sex workers from violence. If someone beat you badly enough, you could press charges. In theory. But you had to prove you were registered. You had to have a witness. And you had to be alive. Historians still argue how often any of that actually worked. Most say not often. A few think some Lenones offered protection, not out of kindness, but to protect their investment. You don't have a leaner, you have instinct. And luck. So far, both are holding. You step away from the crowd, head for a darker corner, calculated risk. Some clients prefer discretion. You tuck your hair behind your ear, make your stance relax. You wait. Eventually, someone bites. Older man. Rings on 3 fingers. Doesn't ask your name, just gestures toward the shadows. He's rough. Not the worst, but enough to leave a bruise on your thigh. You don't cry out. Just grit your teeth and wait. After, he drops the coin on the ground. You have to bend to pick it up. He walks away before you're even standing. You press your back to the wall, eyes closed, count 5 breaths. Still alive. Still working. You light a candle, just a stub, at a nearby wall niche. You don't even look at which god it belongs to. You just need the light. You lean against the wall, and for a moment you let your body sag. Muscles shaking, spine aching, heart slow but steady. And yet some part of you still holds firm, still ready. Because you'll work until the torches burn low, until the patrols grow fewer, until the sky fades from wine to ink. This is night shift in the Subura. You've survived it before. You will again. The torchlight flickers lower now, not from wind, but from time. You can tell the hour by how many vendors have packed up, how the street musicians play slower, how even the drunks begin to stagger home. Night in Rome has a rhythm, and you've learned it beat by beat. You head toward your fallback alley, near the old wine shop with the broken sign. It's just out of view from the main road, but still close enough to pull traffic. You glance at the shadows around it. 2 girls already posted, both familiar. One is Agrippina, still talking to her wooden doll like it's whispering tax advice. The other is Cassia, perched on a barrel, one eye bruised and blooming purple. She sees you, nods once. Doesn't explain. Doesn't need to. Everyone knows that colour. Everyone's worn it. As you lean against the wall, you feel it again. That low, slow burn at the base of your spine. The ache that says you've gone too far today, but you're not done yet. Not until your pouch has enough to matter. You spot a figure across the alley. Sharp tunic, good shoes. A client, maybe. Or worse, a pimp. Rome has plenty of them, and they wear a dozen faces. Some dress like merchants, some like beggars. The clever ones barely speak above a whisper, but every girl knows who they are. You've kept your distance. So far. He doesn't approach, just watches. Then melts into the shadows like a bad dream you'll have later. You exhale. Then you hear it. Coins clinking. A man approaches, drunk but rich enough to pretend he isn't. He winks, calls you Venus. You say your rate. He nods, overpays. You guide him into the back of the alley, where the shadows cover everything except the glint of a dagger if you need it. You don't. He's fast, clumsy, leaves his tunic unbelted as he wanders off. You count your coin. 3 denarii. And here's the part nobody explains when you start this job. It's not always the act that hurts. It's everything around it. The pacing, the watching, the haggling, the pretending. Sometimes you're more exhausted from smiling than from working. You return to your spot and shift your weight to your other hip. Then you feel a tap. U-turn. It's Felix. He's not a client. He's something worse. A middleman. A handler. A whisperer. You've seen him slide between the taverns, make deals in dark corners, laugh with city guards. He doesn't own you, but he keeps trying to change that. Evening, he says, too casually. You nod, silent. Word is, you're pulling coin. Steady regulars. Decent tips. You shrug. Luck. He smirks. Luck runs out. You know what doesn't. Protection. Here we go. You let me manage your hours, he continues. Your rates stay up. Your safety improves. Nobody touches you unless I say. No more bruises from boys who don't want to pay. I take 20%. You cross your arms. Then 30. Then 50. Then all. Don't be dramatic. I'm not, you say. I'm tired. He clicks his tongue. Suit yourself. But you say no too long. Bad things happen. Doors close. Clients vanish. Maybe girls do too. You hold his gaze. You don't blink. Eventually he walks off. You grip the wall until your nails hurt. Here's a truth the city won't admit. The unofficial rules are louder than the written ones. You can have a license, pay taxes, follow the law, but if someone like Felix decides you're stepping out of line, he doesn't need paperwork to make your life hell. That's where patrons come in. Not the same as pimps, not always. Patrons are men with power who pick a girl, support her, protect her, sometimes even claim her publicly. It's rare, dangerous, but tempting. You've seen it happen. A girl gets lucky, gets scooped out of the street and into a rented room. Clean linens, no more corners, no more Felix. But it comes with a cost. He wants loyalty, obedience, maybe exclusivity, and when he gets tired of you, you're back on the curb, reputation worn thin, enemies piled high. Still, some try. You think of Julia, who caught the eye of a retired senator. He bought her a comb of real ivory, sent her figs in winter. For a while, she walked with pride. Then his wife found out. Julia ended up working the necropolis wall. No figs, no comb. Historians still argue over the role of patrons in the sex trade. Some claim they were saviors. Others call them polished owners. You say both. Depends on the man, depends on the girl. You glance down at your coin pouch. You've done well tonight. Enough for dinner, maybe even a hot bath tomorrow if you time it right. The thought almost makes you smile. Then Cassia coughs behind you. Deep, rattling. You turn. She's pale, shaking. Water, you offer. She nods. You hand her your last swallow from your cracked cup. She drinks slow. No thank you, no words, just a glance. A quiet agreement. I'll do the same for you when it's your turn. Because in this world you learn the difference between charity and survival. You give what you can, you take what you must. And when the torchlight gets too dim to work, you still stand there. Waiting, because clients don't sleep. They stagger, they hunt, they linger, and so do you. The torches are dying, but the game's not over. In fact, this is when it shifts gears. When it becomes something else entirely. Not just flesh for coin anymore. Now it's theatre. You're not just a body. You're a performer, an illusionist, a chameleon with calluses. You hear the music before you see it. Lute strings and rhythmic clapping. rising from a tavern 2 alleys down. You follow the sound, not for a drink, for the tips. Inside, the place reeks of spilt wine, sweat, cheap perfume and roasted chickens. The floor's sticky, the air is thick with smoke and laughter. A man in a senator's cast-off cloak is stomping his foot on the beat like he owns the room. He doesn't. You know the real owner, a toothless woman named Bassa, who'll let you work her floor if you keep the patrons spending. You nod to her. She nods back. That's the deal. This is a different kind of shift now. No alley walls, no quick negotiations. Here, you flirt. You dance. You laugh at jokes that make you want to chew glass. You sell the idea of pleasure more than the act itself. You weave through the crowd, hips loose, eyes sharp. You stop near a table of merchants, maybe from the docks, smelling of salt, with heavy coin purses. One slurs something about your smile. You give it to him in spades. Buy me a drink and I might tell you what else I'm good at. You purr. He laughs so hard he chokes. They order a jug of wine. You sit. You don't touch your cup. Rule 1. Don't get drunk. Not here. Not ever. Instead, you lean in, ask questions, tell stories, most of them lies, all of them golden. You make one man believe you're from Carthage. Another thinks you used to sing in the theatre. One asks if your hair is real. You offer to let him tug it for another coin. This is the part of your job nobody writes graffiti about. The charm, the banter, the constant spinning of yourself into something marketable. You're not just selling your body, you're selling company, the illusion of being understood, the fantasy of being desired by someone who seems to genuinely enjoy you. They pay for that. Bassa passes you a wink. You've got their attention. You've got the room humming. You sing next, softly, just a few lines of a campy love song popular among soldiers. They clap. Coins clink. Someone throws a fig. Another offers more if you'll dance. You do. Nothing fancy, just a sway of your hips, arms lifted, eyes half closed like you're lost in the music. It doesn't matter if you're good. They're drunk enough to believe you're divine. A few more coins hit the table. And here's the strange truth. This part, this performance, sometimes it feels better than the alley work. Not cleaner, still gritty, still exhausting, but warmer. Less like being used, more like being admired. Just a little. You collect your tips discreetly, slide them into your pouch. The table's attention is waning now, drifting. One asks if you want to go upstairs. You shake your head. Already booked tonight? You lie. But next time, bring a bigger purse. They laugh. One slaps your rear. You spin and slap his face. Not hard, just enough. He grins. He loves it. Some of them want the fight. As you step away, another girl takes your spot. You don't mind. Your work there is done. Outside again, the street is quieter, darker. You walk with a looseness that's half fatigue, half earned pride. You've just made 5 denarii without lifting your tunic. Historically, Roman sex workers often supplemented their income with performances, singing, dancing, storytelling. Some were trained musicians. Others were comedians of a kind, hired to liven parties or entertain drunk aristocrats. A few were invited into elite circles, at least until they spoke too freely. You once met a girl named Syra, who could juggle knives. She swore she made more doing that than she ever did on her back. One night, a centurion paid her just to throw one at him. She missed on purpose. He tipped her double. Not all clients wanted flesh. Some wanted distraction. And you gotten good at reading which is which. You head now toward the courtyard behind the taverna. It's where the serious spenders go after hours. The ones who've lost dice games and still want to win something. You find a seat on a low wall and cross your legs, casual, poised. A man approaches, late 30s, beard trimmed, sandals polished. You know his type. Military, maybe. Maybe just wealthy. He doesn't look at your chest. He looks at your face. Do you speak Greek? He asks. You nod. You don't. But you know enough to fake it. He sits beside you, asks you to recite something. You quote a line you once heard a literate girl say. He smiles, tells you it's from Euripides. You nod like you knew that. He pays you 5 denarii just to sit with him and pretend you're fluent. Easy coin, easier than dancing. You listen to him rant about Rome, about politics, about his wife. He offers more for the night, you consider. He seems safe. You agree. He walks you to his rented room, lights 2 oil lamps and pours you watered wine. He talks. A lot. You listen. A lot. When he finally touches you, it's almost gentle. You pretend to like it. Maybe you do. Just a little. When he falls asleep, you collect your coin and leave. Outside, the moon is high. The streets are almost empty. You walk home in silence, the clink of coins in your sash your only music. You've performed well tonight. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. The moon is a dull coin above you now, neither full nor hidden, just hanging there like an eye that's seen too much. You make your way back toward your sleeping corner, your muscles buzzing from exhaustion and the ghost of every hand that touched you tonight. As you pass a bathhouse wall, something stops you. There it is. Your name. Again. Scrawled in charcoal, probably with a broken stick or someone's last smouldering twig. Flora guy's the best kiss in Rome. You stare at it. Your first instinct is to scrape it off. But then you see what's next to it. Atlasinia's cheaper. You roll your eyes. You're officially part of the bathhouse gossip cycle now. That's how you know you're getting attention. Or competition. Or both. Maybe it's envy. Maybe it's sabotage. Either way, it means you're visible. This is how reputations form in Rome. Not from scrolls or tributes. From walls. From whispers. From slurs shouted in alleys and praise etched with broken tiles. You've heard it all. Some girls dream of seeing their name painted in red, like Maritima did in Pompeii, when a drunk poet scrawled Maritima, delight of 7 provinces on a tavern wall. She wore that like a crown. You're not sure how to feel. You keep walking. In the shadow of a temple you pass 2 matrane, walking with their maids, veils draped just so, perfume trailing like they're allergic to the street. One gives you a look, sharp, icy, practiced. You've seen it before. And here's the irony. You know her husband. He likes it rough, pays extra for bruises, pretends afterward that you're a Vestal virgin he corrupted. You told him once he wasn't creative. He tipped you less. The metrane clutch their shawls tighter as they pass you, like your presence alone might stain them. They have no idea they wear you in their silence. This is the double life of Roman women, those who live above the stairs and those who work beneath them. You don't get to switch places, but you do get to see the overlap. Like when a matron's servant comes asking what oils you use. Like when one leaves a coin and a note at your usual post, asking if her husband visits you, and if so, does he mention her name? You never answer. Not because you're loyal, because you don't need that kind of mess. But you keep the coin. You arrive at your resting spot behind the olive stool. It's not much. A blanket, a crack in the wall for your pouch, and a bucket for your feet. You sit, stretch, wince. Your knees are scraped, your shoulders sore from when a client pushed too hard. But you're whole. That's your measure of success now. And as you lie down, you hear 2 voices, girls nearby, whispering in the dark. Said she saw her name scratched into the baths. Good or bad? Don't know. Depends who wrote it. You smile faintly. You've made it into the network, not just as a body, but as a name, a story. This is how legacy works in your world. Not through children or villas, through talk, through rumor, through the men who remember you because they can't forget. One time, a client came to you and said, "I heard about you from a friend." You asked what the friend said. He replied, "She said you never lie about your price, and you never cry." You weren't sure if that was praise, but it made you memorable. And that's the game now. You don't just want to survive. You want to be remembered. You want the baker's apprentice to whisper about you to the fishmonger. You want soldiers to argue over which alley you work. You want men to carve your name into the back of a latrine door and spell it almost right. Reputation means repeat business. It means protection. Sometimes it even means power. Historians still dig up graffiti from brothels and alleyways with names like Egel and Fortunata and Cione. Sometimes they come with reviews. A good time for 2 coins. Other times they're curses. May she go blind for stealing my ring. It's petty, it's crude, it's history. And now, you're part of it. You lie back on the rough blanket, pull your sash under your head like a pillow. Your fingers trace the edge of your coin pouch, tucked safely into the wall crack. You've got just enough for a bath tomorrow. Maybe a new sandal strap. Maybe even a piece of smoked meat, if you haggle hard enough. Your name's out there, on a bathhouse wall, in a client's pocket, in another girl's whispered warning. You've become a story. And in this city, stories outlive bodies. Morning again. You wake with a dry mouth, sore knees, and a clear sense of dread. Not because anything's gone wrong, yet because nothing's changed. Another day in Rome, another run through the loop. No miracles, no rescue. Just you, your sandals, and your wits. You sit up slowly, flex your toes, and check the crack in the wall. Still there, the coin pouch, tucked where even the drunkest thief wouldn't bother to look. You count it by feel. Rough edges, shapes memorized. 10 bronze asses, 4 denarii, and a few clipped coins that might fool a half-blind vendor. You're saving. Not fast, not enough, but steadily. You've got a goal, not freedom, stability. That's the dream. A little room, a corner stall in a quieter district, a future that doesn't hinge on the angle of your hips or the quality of your fake laugh. You think about it constantly, like a riddle you're trying to solve. You head toward the bathhouse with your pouch hidden under your sash, coin pressing into your ribs as you walk. You want the warm water, the scrape of pumice, the faint fantasy that you're something more than the street. The bathhouse is quiet this early, just a few old men murmuring politics, and a merchant's wife gossiping to her maid. You pay with 2 bronze coins and step inside, shedding your tunic like you're casting off someone else's skin. The water stings at first. You wince as your legs submerge, but then you exhale, deep, slow, shoulders finally unclenching. You scrub yourself with olive oil and ash. You run the dull edge of a shell over your arms. You pluck a flea from your hair and flick it into the drain. Luxury, Roman style. And while you clean, you think about coin. You know girls who never save. They blow it all on wine, ribbons, painted glass jewellery. Not you. You stash everything you can. You barter when you can't pay. You've even considered lending. Cassia tried that once. She loaned to the wrong girl, got stiffed, took a beating when she asked for repayment. Now she sticks to what she knows, flirting and praying she doesn't catch something. You towel off with a rag someone left behind. It smells like vinegar and old roses. Close enough. Outside, the street's already humming. You grab a small cake from a vendor, overpriced, slightly burnt, and pay in coppers without haggling. You're in a good mood, clean, full, and ahead by 5 denarii. It won't last, you know that. But for now, you let yourself enjoy the win. On your way back to your usual corner, you see Agrippina. She's sitting cross-legged on the ground, whispering to her doll again. You nod to her. She nods back. There's a quiet understanding between savers. You're trying. That alone separates you from most of the crowd. You remember when Rufina bought her freedom? It was the talk of the whole Subura. She'd saved for 5 years. Said she got lucky. One generous patron, a few good months, and suddenly she was holding enough coin to buy her own name. She rented a room above a dye shop, started selling oil and combs, kept working part-time for a while, just until the shop picked up. Then one day she just stopped. You've passed her storefront since. She doesn't wave, but she doesn't look away either. You think about that day a lot, not the buying of freedom, but the choice to stop. That kind of power seems impossible most of the time. Historians still debate how often prostitutes in Rome actually bought their freedom or rose into other roles. Some say it happened more than we think, citing letters, tombs inscriptions, records of freed women who owned land or ran shops. Others argue it was rare, exaggerated, a myth girls told themselves to stay sane. You believe it's possible. But you also believe in gravity, and it always pulls you back. You stop by the fuller's stool to patch your sandal strap. He eyes you with the same tired disapproval he gives everyone, then takes your coin and grunts as he works. You ever going to get new ones? He asks. When I can afford not to eat for a week. He grins, showing 2 missing teeth. These'll last you another month. That's all you need, just long enough to stash a few more coins, just long enough to reach your mark. You've got a system now. Each day, you track what you spend. 1 coin for food, 2 for shelter or safety, 1 for hygiene, if you're lucky. The rest goes in the pouch. No splurging, no lovers, no favours. You've seen too many girls lose everything for a pretty lie. You pass the Temple of Fortuna on your way back. You don't stop, but you look. You whisper a number under your breath. It's your goal, the total you need to buy your way into a better life. You're halfway there. And that's the part you never tell the clients. That behind every touch, every fake moan, every careful joke, you're counting. Not seconds, not bruises. Coins. Because each one means something. Each one gets you closer. To a different job. To a door you can close from the inside. To a day where you don't have to smile unless you want to. You reach your corner. Take your spot. Adjust your tunic. The day begins again. But this time, you've got 1 more coin in your pouch than you did yesterday. And for now, that's enough. You're sitting at your usual spot, counting footfalls and sunlight, when you see her. She's walking differently now, upright, slower, like her time doesn't belong to anyone else anymore. Rufina. You recognize her even before she turns her head. Her tunic is clean. She wears a sash of real wool, the kind only freed women or sharp liars can afford. Her hair is oiled, not just to cover smell, but for style. And her sandals? New. Thick soles, polished straps. Rufina catches your eye. For a second she pauses. You wait for a nod, a smile, anything. She gives you a flat look, then walks on. No grudge, no warmth, just... You watch her disappear into the crowd and feel something tight in your chest. It's not jealousy, not quite. It's the ache of proximity. She made it out. And it makes you wonder, if you ever leave, will you look back the same way? There's no clear rule on what happens after you stop working. That's the part no one explains. If you survive long enough, if you save enough, if you somehow escape debt, disease, and men who think no is a challenge, then what? You've heard stories. Some girls buy a stool, start selling fruit or combs or cloth scraps. Some marry usually older men, often widowers who know what they're getting. A few go into managing other girls. Not pimps exactly, but not innocent either. And a rare few become temple servants. Not priestesses, but helpers. Washing floors, lighting lamps, places where no one touches you, where no one asks your price. But the dream, the big one, to become a freed woman. That title means everything. You can legally own property, run a business, testify in court, even marry a citizen. It's the closest thing to becoming someone new without actually being born again. And it's not just about money. You have to be freed by your owner or manager, or buy yourself out if you're independent. It comes with paperwork, witnesses, and sometimes bribes. But if it happens, you get a new name. You keep your old one as a middle name, so people know where you came from, but also that you moved forward. There's a woman named Antonia who runs a cloth shop by the Tiber. Used to work these same alleys. Now she hires girls like you to fold linen and sweep floors. She's tough, quiet, and carries a dagger in her sash. You respect that. She came by once, years ago, looking for someone to help her load bolts of wool. She chose Fausta, gave her a clean tunic, a steady wage, and rules. Fausta lasted 2 weeks, said it was too slow. Back to the street she went. That's the other side of the coin, isn't it? Some girls make it out, but don't know what to do with freedom. No chaos, no danger, no risk. What even is a life without panic? You think maybe you'd figure it out, but you can't say for sure. You've trained your body to respond to threat. Your ears pick out footsteps behind you before your eyes see them. You smell sweat and wine like they're warning signs. You speak in 3 voices, sweet, sultry, and stop. You're not sure how long it would take to unlearn that. But maybe you don't have to unlearn it. Maybe you just have to redirect it. You've thought about opening a bakery. You're not a cook, but people like warm bread and a kind word. And you'd be your own boss. Maybe even wear blue, a colour you never let yourself touch because it's too easy to stain and too hard to replace. Or maybe you'd run a bathhouse, hire girls who need a break. No tricks, no back rooms, just hot water, laughter, and clean towels. It's almost funny. When you imagine a better life, it's always less. Less noise, less touching, less pretending. Like luxury isn't gold, but quiet. Historically, some freed women in Rome did rebuild their lives. One inscription honours a woman named Lucilia, a former slave and prostitute who became a respected midwife. Another, Velusia Leda, ran a shipping business with her second husband. Her tombstone calls her faithful, just, and beloved. But for every one of them, there were hundreds who didn't make it. You look down at your own feet, dusty, tired, but still moving. A merchant passes, stops, looks at you. How much? You quote your rate without thinking. He hesitates. I've seen you here before. What's your name? You lie, again, as always. And as you lead him toward a quiet doorway, you wonder what your real name would sound like in a future where you don't have to lie anymore. Afterward, you sit on a stone step and fish out your pouch. Add the new coin to the others. You're more than halfway now. You close your eyes for a moment and picture it. A clean room, your own name on a shop sign, no whispers behind your back, no bruises, a door that you lock. Maybe even a moment, just one, where you wake up and your first thought isn't how to survive, but what you want to do. It feels far. But it also feels possible. And that makes you rise again. Because you're not just buying a future. You're buying back yourself. One coin at a time. You're walking through the forum now, head lowered, steps light, keeping close to the columns like a shadow that knows it doesn't belong. The forum is Rome's pride. Marble, monuments, marble about monuments, senators in togas that cost more than your entire life. This is where the speeches happen, the deals, the decisions that shape everyone else's lives, while people like you wait in the corners, holding your breath. You're not here to sightsee, you're following a lead. Someone told you a senator's nephew, rich, bored, and recently divorced, likes his girls from the Subura. But he only visits clean ones. Ones who can read, or fake it. Ones who don't talk too much. You're dressed for the occasion. Simple tunic, teeth rubbed clean with salt and mint, hair tied back so your face is fully visible. You don't look expensive, but you look intentional. There's a difference. As you stand near a statue of Julius Caesar, pretending to admire the chipped nose, you hear the sneers. "Look at this one," someone says, standing too straight for a real woman. You don't turn, you don't flinch. That's how you know they're senators. They love to insult you loud enough for others to hear, but not enough for you to answer. The hypocrisy drips off them like sweat. They pass laws that make your work harder, banning street solicitation, increasing taxes, forcing new inspections at brothels, and then send their slaves to fetch you at midnight. You've seen them before. The same mouths that preach morality spit your name into alleyways. The same fingers that sign laws point to your hip and say, "Turn around." Senator Aulus Calpurnius once passed a decree fining brothel workers who operated near temples. 3 days later, he hired 2 of your friends to meet him behind one. Another, Marcus Fadius, publicly condemned the moral decay of public women, then got caught with a 17-year-old boy in a bag of imported perfume. Nothing happened. Of course it didn't. Here's the thing about Roman elites. They know your name in private and forget it in public. Unless they write poetry, then they pretend to be in love with you, as long as their wives don't read. You once met a client who paid double just to call you Lucretia. He wanted tragedy with his pleasure. You gave it to him. And when he was done, he cried. You didn't. You turned slightly, catching sight of a familiar cloak. That's the senator's nephew. Hair too perfect, jawline sculpted like a statue no one asked for. He's surrounded by flatterers and fake friends, laughing too hard, like boys who've never been hit in their lives. You move into his line of sight, casually, as if you just happen to stroll by. He sees you. His eyes pause. You hold the gaze for 1 beat, 2, then look away like you're bored. That's the trick. Never act hungry. They smell need like dogs smell blood. Sure enough, a slave appears 10 minutes later, young, fidgety. "My master requests your company," he says, like he's offering you a choice. You nod and follow. You're led to a quiet arcade near a fountain, private enough to talk, public enough to pretend it's innocent. The senator's nephew smiles. "You're from the Subura?" You shrug. "Sometimes." He grins. "They said you were clever." You don't answer. Clever girls don't confirm things. They let you think you figured it out. He talks for a while. About politics. About how hard it is being powerful. About how no one really understands the burden of expectation. You nod in all the right places. Eventually, he suggests you meet him at his domus. Quietly. Later. You quote your rate. He blinks, then laughs. "You're not cheap?" "No," you say. "I'm not." He agrees. You leave with a promise of future coin and a heavy silence behind you. This is what playing with elites feels like, walking on a wire while smiling like it's solid ground. And here's the strange thing. Some of these men do fall in love with you, or something like it. They fantasize that you'll give it all up for them, that you're waiting to be rescued. You're not. You've already learned. Men like that want to own you in a cleaner house. But it's still a cage, just with cushions. There's an old story about a woman named Theodora. Before she was empress, she was an actress and courtesan. People spat when she walked by. Later, they bowed to her. Power has no memory, only position. Historians still argue whether women like her ever truly escaped their pasts. Some believe Roman society let them climb. Others say the past always followed, whispered through every corridor. You say it's both. As you walk back toward your district, your sandals hitting the marble slower now, you pass another statue. It's a woman this time, her face half eroded, her eyes still watching. You nod to her. She doesn't answer. You don't need her to. Because one day, you won't just be seen by senators. You'll be beyond them, and they'll write laws trying to catch up to you. The metronae are out today. You can tell by the way the air tightens when they pass. You see one eye you sideways. Her maid, younger, walks behind her, carrying a basket of fish. The Matrona flares her nostrils as she passes you, like she smells something worse than the fish. You smile politely, not for her, for the maid, because the maid's looking at you too. Not with disgust, with curiosity, and maybe recognition. You nod slightly, almost imperceptible. The matron doesn't notice, but the maids? She nods back. That's how this city works. The women above the stairs pretend not to see you, while their servants whisper your name behind closed doors. Guess who the master visited last night? Guess what she wore? Guess what she said? The respectable women aren't as distant as they like to believe. Their husbands know your schedule, their sons carve your name into bathhouse tiles, and their maids? Sometimes they come to you first, asking what he likes, what he doesn't. You once taught a maid how to fake a laugh, said it worked better than perfume. She came back a week later with a coin and a fig, said, "He asked if I was you." You told her to raise her price. Today, you linger near a fabric stool, running your fingers over a bolt of dyed linen you can't afford. You see another Matrona, older, stricter, silver pins in her hair, eyes like chipped marble. She sees you. And this time, she stops. You brace. She steps closer. Her maid looks nervous. You look bored. "Are you the one they call Flora?" she asks. You tilt your head. Sometimes. She studies you. "My husband mentioned you, twice, once in a dream." You don't respond. Not yet. Then she reaches into her sleeve and hands you a tiny bundle. You unfold it. A small glass vial of perfume. "Don't flatter him too much," she says. "He gets ideas." You raise an eyebrow. "Don't thank me," she adds. "I'm not on your side. I'm on mine." And then she walks away. You pocket the vial and breathe slowly. Welcome to Rome, where respectability is armor, but curiosity leaks through the seams. You've heard of matronae hiring women like you to spy, to seduce, to shame, to keep tabs on husbands who pretend to be faithful while visiting the same alley 3 nights a week. Once, a senator's wife hired Fausta to seduce her husband again, just so she could catch him in the act and secure a legal divorce. Fausta didn't mind. Double pay. You turn down a narrow street and spot a familiar face. Lollia, once a bathhouse regular, now working as a wet nurse for a family uptown. They say she left the life. You know better. She just changed her label. That's the thing about Roman women. Respectability is branding. Control your narrative and you can pretend you were never touched. Historically, scholars still wrestle with the line between respectable Roman women and sex workers. Was it money, clothing, marriage? Some texts suggest even elite women dabbled when convenient, hosting salons, taking lovers, arranging affairs that danced just outside scandal. Others suggest iron walls between classes. The truth is messier. You once heard a matrina laugh at a party. Same laugh a girl made in a tavern the week before. Same tilt of the head. Same touch to the wrist. Difference? One had pearls, the other had bruises. You make your way back toward the Subura, past a row of villas with iron gates and heavy curtains. You catch glimpses, young women in gold-threaded tunics, sitting silently, sipping watered wine. They're not smiling. They're not free. You know what that's like too. The lie they're sold is that marriage is a step up. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. You've had married clients who say things like, "She never listens," or "You actually look at me." You nod. You pretend to care. You add a coin to your pouch. Then you go home and forget their names. But sometimes, rarely, one of those wives remembers yours. You once got called to a villa by a merchant's wife. She wanted to talk, not hire. She asked how you kept your hair from breaking. You told her, "Olive oil and boiled nettle." She said thank you, gave you a small mirror with a bronze handle, said she had two. You still have it. On rough mornings you check your face in it and say, "You're still here." Today you catch your reflection in a window. Dirt on your cheek, smudge of perfume at your throat, the line of your collarbone like punctuation in a story no one's finished reading. You walk on. Past wives who pretend not to see you, past maids who copy your smile, past daughters who wonder why you're both feared and imitated. Because in this city, they get the statues. But you get the stories. You stretch your legs out along the edge of a crumbling step, the stone warm beneath your thighs, and exhale into the night. It's quiet now, really quiet. The market's shut, the taverns hum low, even the rats move slower, like they've had their fill. You rub a knot in your calf that's been building all day, and try not to think too hard about what comes next. Not tonight, but someday. Old age. You laugh under your breath just thinking it. It sounds like a joke. Who gets old in your line of work? Not many, not honestly. Not without scars, missing teeth, or stories you never tell again. But some do. A few. And lately, you've been watching them more closely. There's Melina, used to be the fastest tongue in the Subura. Not anymore. Now she runs a tavern near the river, where the roof leaks and the bread's always stale, but the stools are solid, and no one lays a hand on her. She's got coin, got quiet, and that's more than most. Then there's Priska, white hair like ash, voice like gravel. Doesn't work anymore, unless you count whispering advice to girls while they braid their hair. She's full of stories, some made up, some too true. They say she once bit a soldier who tried to rough her up, took a piece of his ear with her teeth. She still wears it on a string tucked under her sash. You kind of love her for that. You sometimes imagine being like that someday. Too old to sell, but too mean to forget. You shift, stretching your back, and feel the familiar pang in your hip. It clicks now, when you stand. A small thing, but a sign. The younger girls call you auntie sometimes. They don't mean it cruelly. They just see that you've lasted, that you don't cry when your sandals snap or when a client calls you something filthy. You patch the strap, you smile, you get paid. They think that means strength. Maybe it does. You pass a wine shop on your way home. A girl sits on the ground outside it, back against the wall, her lips swollen, her eyes starting to purple. She's maybe 16. Maybe. You don't know her name. You sit beside her. You don't talk. Just share the fig in your pouch and give her a piece of cloth to dab the blood from her nose. She eats in silence, then lies her head against your shoulder for half a breath. It's not about being kind. It's about being known. In a life like this, there's something about a face that's lasted longer than 5 seasons. Something about not being new, not being fresh. Something about familiarity that feels almost sacred. Even clients come back for it. You've seen it. A man you served years ago comes back, not because you're young, but because you're real. Because he remembers the joke you told, or the way you tied your sash, or how you didn't flinch when he confessed something awful. They like the girls who last. At least, the decent ones do. The others, they want fresh. They want new girls. Ones still afraid to ask for payment up front. Ones who think no is optional. You try to warn them. They never listen. Not until it's too late. But sometimes they survive. And if they do, they might become like you. You think about Tership, quiet girl, sweet voice, used to cry after every client. Then one day she stopped crying, started counting her coins, saved up for a year, bought a corner stool near the dye shops. Now she sells scraps of cloth and old tunics. You passed by recently. She looked clean, tired but clean. She didn't wave, but she looked you in the eye. You've seen the full arc enough now to know there's more than one end. Some girls die, some vanish, some are carried off by patrons or pimps, or worse. But a few just fade into something else. Temple workers, shopkeepers, seamstresses, widows with secrets, even teachers. Yes, really. There's a woman who lives in the shadow of the Aventine Hill who teaches younger girls how to read. Claims she used to be a Lupanar girl. Now she teaches letters, basic math, and how to spot a fake coin. You sent Fuster to her last week. Said she didn't need it. Came back 2 days later asking where the teacher lived again. You might go too. Not yet. But maybe soon. You picture yourself in a room, a real one, with walls and a lock. Not a palace, just quiet. Maybe you teach girls how to lace sandals without snapping the straps. Maybe you brew herbs. Maybe you just sit in a chair and don't get touched. That would be enough. Historians still argue whether Roman sex workers ever truly retired. Some records suggest a few did, granted freedom, saved enough, or aged out and reinvented. Others say it's a myth, a wish, that once you're in, you die. But then, they never met Priska, or Melina, or you. You reach your sleeping corner and settle down slow, hip still aching, knees stiff. You tuck your pouch close and pull your blanket around your shoulders. A group of drunk men stumbles past. One looks your way, says something lewd. You don't even blink. He keeps walking. You smile into the dark. Because you're still here. And in a job that chews through girls like straw, lusting is its own kind of victory.
The wind changes. You feel it as you rise, slowly, every joint complaining. A dry breeze that rolls down from the hills and cuts through Rome's belly like a thief. It carries dust, whispers, the smell of ash. Somewhere nearby, someone's burning olive wood. You pause. Inhale. The morning's younger than usual. You woke early, before the bread carts, before the shouting. The city hasn't fully put its face on yet. And in that half-light hush, you remember something strange. They're still arguing about you. Not you exactly, but the idea of you. The men with scrolls and sandals sit in libraries and shaded atriums, debating whether girls like you were free or slaves, sinners or victims, outcasts or citizens. They quote each other in circles. They read inscriptions, scratch beards, sip watered wine, and pretend they've figured it out. They haven't. You shake your head and stretch your arms, the fabric of your tunic stiff where sweat dried last night. You roll your neck. You gather your pouch and tuck it tight against your ribs. Another day and another chance to be misinterpreted by people who will never speak to someone like you. You pass a wall covered in layers of chalk, some old, some fresh. And Fortunata loves Darius. Oh, asses, no don't trust Valeria, she'll rob you blind. Then farther down, we remember Cassia. You stop. Cassia's gone now, vanished last month. No one saw what happened. Some say she ran, others say she was taken. And yet, someone wrote her name. Wrote it like a vow. You run your hand over the letters, not to erase them, just to feel them. There are traces of you all over this city. In smudged ink, in tavern talk, in half-said names behind curtains, in coins carried from hand to hand, each one kissed by the warmth of your skin. They'll never write you in the official histories, but they'll find you in the margins. In curse tablets buried under the stones, may Flora's beauty fade, in grave markers that say only freedwoman, beloved. in rings inscribed with initials that no wife recognizes, in tiny artifacts that speak louder than scrolls. You walk past a man lighting a torch. He nods to you. He doesn't know your name, but he's heard of you. You reach your spot early. No one else has arrived yet. The stone is cool. You sit. Watch the city yawn and stretch. Across the street, a girl stands in a doorway. New, hair too neat, eyes too hopeful. You remember being her. You raise a hand. She hesitates, then waves back. Just like that, your story ripples again. One more thread in a web no senator sees, but every girl feels. You once asked Priska what her secret was, how she survived this long, how she still smiles with half her teeth and twice your nerve. She said, keep breathing, keep watching, keep yourself. You asked, even when they try to take it? She just smiled, especially then. You do. Just breathe, you watch, and you keep yourself sharpened, quiet, and waiting. You don't need a monument. You are a warning carved in flesh. A lullaby hummed by torchlight. A woman still standing when the story's supposed to be over. And one day, when the city forgets everything else, someone will brush dust from a scratched wall or dig up a broken comb and ask, who was she? And the silence will answer, all of them. You lie down for the last time tonight. The stone under your body is uneven, but familiar. You've mapped every crack in it with your spine. You pull your blanket over your shoulder, tucking your coin pouch close to your chest, that little lump of bronze and hope. The air has cooled, the shouting has stopped, the city's engine winds down to a whisper. No footsteps now, just the occasional thud of something dropped in the dark, a shutter slamming, a dog barking once far off. You close your eyes. The ache in your hip softens, the tightness behind your ribs loosens. Even your thoughts slow down, like lazy clouds drifting behind your eyelids. And in that space between waking and sleep, you feel something you haven't in a while. Not fear, a hunger, not even hope. It's just breath. But you picture a warm room with a closed door, a soft bed, no one waiting outside, no one watching. You picture a day when no one asks your price, where your name isn't whispered but spoken clearly by someone who means it. Maybe you'll get there. Maybe you won't. But tonight, you've earned stillness. Breathe in. Let it settle. Let it all fall away. The dust, the noise, the names. Tonight, you belong to no one. Not even Rome. The story ends here. Close your eyes, drift deep, sweet dreams.